Hey guys, it's Gawain, and today we are going to be taking a look at possibly the most underrated operator in the game, Capitão. Capitão is a 3-speed 1-armor attack operator that specializes in area denial, sightline denial, and providing supporting utility for his team. Capitão is one of the best flex operators in the game, so let's learn how to play him. Capitão is equipped with his bolt bow, which fires 2 types of bolts. By default, his crossbow is loaded with fire bolts, of which he gets 2, but if you press the swap fire mode button, be on PC, then you will equip your micro smoke bolts, of which he gets 2 as well. Both bolts fire in a perfectly straight line until after 10 meters when the bolt starts to drop slightly, but it's negligible for the most part. The fire, or asphyxiating bolt, creates a cloud of fire which expands into a pool of fire with a maximum radius of 5 meters, lasting for 10 seconds. The fire will always drop to the ground no matter what, even if the bolt hits a wall or ceiling. The fire will only damage players, enemy and friendly, and it does 12 damage per tick, and there's 3 ticks in a second for this fire, so it does around 36 damage per second. As for the micro smoke bolts, they create a cloud of smoke, wider than your average smoke grenade secondary gadget, but they last for a slightly shorter duration than the typical smoke grenade. Your cloud bolts are not affected by gravity, meaning you can take a leaf out of Valorant's book and create some one-way smokes if you want to. I personally use both sets of bolts to cover a teammate whilst planting or myself whilst planting. I use the fire to block pathways towards where the diffuser is being planted so enemies can't run at the person planting, and the smoke to block sidelines onto whoever is planting, making them harder to hit. You could also use your smokes to block sidelines during a plant, and use your fire for post-plant when enemies go for the defuse. Just be aware that you or your teammates will have to be speedy with the plant because it is very likely that your smoke bolts will run out towards the last second of the diffuser being put down, so it's worth using one when entering site and another towards the end of that smoke so you get a full coverage. Other uses for the smoke bolts include blocking sightlines and making your way through a building or entering it, and like I said, making one-way smokes if possible. As for the firebolt, this is the main attraction to Capitão for me. You can flush enemies out of positions for a free kill whilst they panic and run away, or you can block off doorways and choke points whilst you enter a building, similarly to your micro smokes, and of course, you've got a pre- and post-plant scenario as well. Don't be afraid to use your firebolts, but I advise using your smokes first because I find they can do the same job as your fire, except only the fire can flush enemies out of positions. I've found it's hard to use all 4 bolts in one round, especially because I don't normally need the smoke bolts, but it's very nice to have them. If you are struggling to flush an enemy out from behind a deployable shield or other bit of cover, you can either aim for the ceiling above them, or instead of having to face check, shoot one bullet through a soft wall, floor or ceiling and keep your crosshair where it is. Swap to your bow and fire an asphyxiating bolt through there and the fire shall appear where you want it as long as you've lined the bullet hole up correctly. This is because whilst bullet holes have been patched visually, they haven't been physically, and both of Capitão's types of bolts have no projectile size at all, so they can go through even the smallest of gaps. To summarize, Capitão is a powerhouse for diffuser scenarios, and he can force enemies into bad positions with his firebolts. Use your smokes to assist a teammate when planting, or to block sightlines and use your fire to damage enemies diffusing, or to flush them out from cover. Capitão's primary weapon options are the Para 308 assault rifle and the M249 light machine gun. As for secondary weapons, he gets access to the PRB-92 handgun and the GON-6 hand cannon. I personally choose the Para 308 for my primary weapon and the GON-6 for my secondary. Now, I would be lying if I said the Para had its name because it's Paradise 0000000, because it's not. But it is very good because it has a great damage stat but only a mediocre fire rate. It's got very easy to control recoil and every scope up to the 2 times, so it's a great gun in combat. If it had a faster fire rate then it would be a contender for the title of best gun in the game. But it doesn't, so it isn't. I choose the Para over the M249 because the LMG's recoil is harder to control due to the LMG recoil nerf, but it is still a viable option. The LMG and the Para have the exact same stats except for mag size, so it is up to you. If you really want the 2.5 times, then go for the LMG, but you will be putting up with worse recoil and a slower reload time. I choose the Para, but it is personal preference. As for the Gun 6, it just adds to Capitão's utility as he can destroy a piece of bulletproof utility with it. You do sacrifice a combat weapon by choosing it, but that shouldn't be an issue as the Para has a 30+1 round magazine and your other option is literally an LMG. The PRB-92 is a pistol, not much more to say about it than that. I'd rather use the Gun 6 because I find that in Siege, if you are needing to swap to your pistol, then you either don't deserve to win the gunfight, or you're already dead by the time you get it out, so I'd rather take the extra utility. In terms of secondary gadgets, Capitão gets access to 2 claymores or 2 hard breach charges. You can actually choose these from situation to situation or map to map because they both work very well on Capitão. I mostly choose the hard breach charges so I can either get a hatch or 2 without the team needing to bring a Habana, or if my team doesn't bring an ace or thermite, then I can take the role of hard breacher. However, the claymores are good too because you can block runouts or flank routes for the defenders, freeing up another spot for a teammate to go someone they're either more comfortable on, or someone just generally better than a Nomad or Gridlock. It's up to you on these secondary gadgets, just see what you and your team are going to do, and change the gadgets accordingly. And remember you can do that in the drone phase now too. In the prep phase, I like to set up a flank cam or save my drone. This way I can use both my drones to the maximum and drone myself or my teammates in. If you set up a flank cam near to where you are going to enter the site or where you are going to be playing, watch it for the entirety of the prep phase so you know if anyone goes that way. If you save your drone, flick through your teammates' cams to see what operators the enemy have and where the site is. To kick off the action phase, get up to the main breach or hatch and try to open it with your can openers. Once the wall or hatch is open, then drone out sight and try to pinpoint the enemy's locations. Use your Gun 6 to destroy a piece of bulletproof utility like a deployable shield. If you spot an enemy behind a deployable shield when you're on your drone, get off cams and throw a firebolt their way to try and get them to move, and maybe you'll get a free kill. Next, jump in and throw a smoke bolt down to either cover your jump in or a teammate planting, and use your second one to refresh the first, if you are covering a plant that is. During all of this, don't be afraid to take gunfights because you aren't the most important operator on the team. It's just better if you do stay alive, of course. Finally, once the diffuser is down, use your remaining firebolts to stall the counter defuse and swing on the remaining enemies if necessary. Hopefully you should have maximized your utility usage and gotten a few kills, but this is a perfect round I'm describing, so don't worry if you don't do all of this in all of the rounds all of the time. Capitão has 2 counters, Wamai and Aruni. Wamai's magnet frisbees will move your bolts off course, causing them to go into places you don't want them to be. They will still detonate, but not in the place you intended them to go to. To prevent this, either shoot the frisbees out before you fire your bolts, or use your Gun 6 to clear at least one of them. Aruni's laser gates will destroy your fire and cloud bolts entirely. To prevent this, either throw a drone or shoot your Gun 6 shot into the gate to clear it before firing as many bolts as you want through that gap. Use your firebolts to cut off rotates and flush enemies out of positions, causing them to panic and peek angles where you or your team are looking. Use the Para 308 for an easy to use gun with an insane damage stat. You'll get used to the mediocre fire rate. Use your cloud bolts to block off sightlines when entering a building or site if you aren't sure where the enemy is and you don't have time to drone. Use the Gun 6 to round off your kit, because it allows you to destroy a piece of bulletproof utility alongside hard breaching and everything else I have mentioned. Adapt your bolt usage to the situation. You don't need to be overly precious about them, so use them when you see fit. I just recommend saving them for a plant or post-plant situation, as that's where they really shine. That being said, they are incredibly versatile, so take advantage of that. Overall, Capitão is an easy operator to play in my opinion. His gadgets and guns are easy to use, and I find the only really difficult aspect of his kit is phase checking when using your gadget, or making a lineup with a bullet hole so you don't have to peek the angle. Learn how to adapt your bolts to the situation. learn how to maximize all of your utility in one round, and you are sure to become a pretty decent Capitão player. Thank you all for watching, I do hope you enjoyed. If you found this video helpful in any way, shape or form, please consider subscribing and sharing it with your friends, as it helps grow the channel and that is very much appreciated. As always, the majority of clips you saw in this video were taken from my Twitch stream, link will be on screen and in the description. Frost is next for the R6 series, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.
Nice.